welcome back everyone to another episode of Figuring Out Epilepsy, where we talk about all things epilepsy plus more. For today's episode, we are going to talk about what happened after I had my first seizure in my 6th grade history class. If you haven't heard the first episode of Figuring Out Epilepsy podcast, definitely go check it out. The story will make a lot more sense. I go into detail about what I went through for my first seizure and how I became diagnosed with epilepsy. So at 11 years old, I had my first seizure in my 6th grade history class. I did not know what epilepsy was. I did not know what seizures were. But I experienced it for the first time when I was 11 years old. And it was the most terrifying thing I have ever gone through in my entire life. Even now, as an adult, having so many seizures after that, I still think the first seizure is probably the most terrifying one. And I kind of wanted to talk about, what happened after my first seizure, going back into school, and how I did not know how much life was going to change. So after I had my seizure, I see a neurologist. He puts me on Topamax or Depakote. I don't remember exactly which one. Those were the first 2 medications I've tried. And so he puts me on that. I did not get an EEG. I did not have another seizure after my first seizure. It was first seizure, boom, you have epilepsy. I don't know exactly why that is. Thinking about it, it doesn't make sense, because you can have seizures and not have epilepsy, but you can't have epilepsy and not have seizures. So I think my diagnosis may have been a little bit premature. That's the diagnosis that I have. To this day, I'm still living with epilepsy. That's a whole other issue, honestly. Maybe I'll do a whole other podcast episode on that. But I didn't go back to school right away after my first seizure. I kind of stayed home a couple days, saw the neurologist, got answers on that, stayed home, and then I went back to school. I don't remember exactly what order. I just remember that my PE class was right before my history class, and then I had one of my really good friends in my PE class, and that day that I got back and we were in PE class together, she was telling me how that day I had my first seizure, my eyes were twitching. And that's a sign for me. That's like a warning sign for me of me about to have a tonic-clonic seizure when my eyes twitch continuously. And I tell my mom that eventually, and I think she realized that I've been twitching actually quite a bit of time before my first seizure, because she told me that there's times where my eyes will roll back, which is what I call my twitching. My eyes will roll back, and she thought I was rolling my eyes at her, when in reality my eyes were twitching because my brain wasn't functioning properly and I was going to have a seizure. It was like a warning sign. I think she said it was happening like a week before, maybe even more. But she thought I was rolling my eyes at her. I probably did after that, but no. But yeah, that's why education on epilepsy is so important, to really know the warning signs. And if you have the opportunity to, I definitely suggest you get Seizure First Aid certified through the Epilepsy Foundation. You can take the course online. My daughter did it at like 10 years old, maybe even younger. And she did it all online. She was able to get Seizure First Aid certified online. And if you're able to, I have a link. I'll put a link down in the description. I also have a link on my Instagram if you want to get Seizure First Aid certified. You can definitely save a life if you choose to do that. And when I was in school after my PE class, I go to history class where I had my first seizure. The teacher, shout out to her, she's amazing. She still works at the school district as a counselor now. I work at the same school district now, so I see her time every once in a while. And so she's amazing. Absolutely love her. She gives me a hug and we kind of talk for a little bit, but I could feel the eyes on me. I can feel everyone just kind of talking about the girl who had the seizure. And that was kind of like how it was the rest of the day. I became known as the girl who had the seizure. And every time I would walk to my other classes, I would get stares. I would get looks until this girl came up to me. Same name, Samantha, similar last name. She comes up to me and she tells me that I need to set the record straight. I need to tell everyone that she's not the one who had seizures. I don't know what her experience was. I only know from this confrontation that people had a mix up. And that's really the problem with gossiping and talking about people, is that the facts get lost when you're telling, when you're gossiping. The facts get lost when you're gossiping. And people mistaken her for me, and they thought she was the girl who had the seizure. So she was probably getting the looks, she was probably getting the whisper, she was probably getting singled out the way I have been during that day. And I'm sorry to that girl who had to go through that. It wasn't my doing. I wasn't the one who told people that you were the one who had the seizure. And I'm sorry that people mixed us up. But she confronted me. She wanted me to set the record straight. I agreed to it. I don't really say much. I was like, okay, we'll go ahead and do that. I'm not opposed to telling people that it was me. I didn't want to tell people if they didn't know that I had the seizure, but it was the right thing to do. So I was like, okay, for her to set this record straight, I'll do it. And my day goes on until lunchtime, and with my group of friends, and one of my friends at the time comes up to me and tells me that there's a rumor going around that I faked my seizure. She told me that my best friend since elementary school said that my best friend from elementary school, they were saying that she told everyone that I faked my seizure for attention, and that I really didn't have my seizure. Which, I mean, she must think very highly of me if she thought I could fake my own seizure. I mean, I know I'm dramatic. I know I'd be a little extra sometimes, but to fake a seizure, at 11 years old, when I never even knew what a seizure was, you have a lot of faith in me. So at lunchtime, I get upset. I'm like, why would anyone fake a seizure? That was my whole thought process, was like, why would anyone fake having a seizure? Who would want to fake a seizure? And I confront her. Back then I wasn't a very confrontational person, but it got to the point, I was just so bothered by that whole day feeling just so uncomfortable with everyone staring at me. And now, one girl confronts me, and then I hear rumors about me faking a seizure when it was the most traumatic experience of my life. Even to this day, I still say my first seizure was the scariest seizure I've ever had. To this day, when I think about it too much, I get teary-eyed, my heart starts beating fast. I get this sick feeling in my stomach, and I prefer to not think about that day. I prefer not to think about what I went through, because it was honestly traumatizing. And for someone who's supposed to be my best friend say that I faked it for attention when I am not that type of person was very hurtful towards me. And so at lunchtime, I confronted her. I asked her, I heard you were telling people that I faked my seizure for attention. Is that true? And she said, no, people are misunderstanding me. I don't know where they're getting that from. So she denies it. And I kind of just, we go back and forth, and I kind of just leave it like that. I just leave it like that, and just walk away. I'm like, I'm not going to get anywhere arguing with someone. If that's what they want to say, then they can say that all they want. I know the truth. My family knows the truth. And God knows the truth. So I don't really have to prove myself to anyone. So I kind of just walked away and left that situation. The thing about epilepsy is you learn fast who your real friends are, who your real support system is. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, we become kind of ostracized because of our chronic illness. A lot of people stop being friends with us. A lot of people say hurtful things towards us. And a lot of people don't even want to become friends with us in the first place. I've heard stories where kids don't have growing up with epilepsy, kids don't have any friends up until they meet someone in the epilepsy community. And as people, we're social beings, and we need that socialization with other people. So it becomes hard when you're living with a chronic illness that not a lot of people understand or take the time to understand, yet you're treated differently because of it. So I learned very quickly that I'm not going to be accepted by everyone. I'm not going to be liked by everyone. Not everyone is going to be my friend. And I learned very quickly that that is okay. It's okay that not everyone's going to like me. It's okay that not everyone is going to accept me and my epilepsy. And I am grateful that I learned that very quickly. It saved me a lot of heartache. I didn't really care to be accepted. I kind of want to be just Sam, just uniquely Sam. Um, a little background on what it was like growing up for me with epilepsy. In high school, I did have a lot of friends. I was a part of this little clique that people called the girls, because we all look similar. We were all like pretty light skinned with dark hair. We were all super short. We all looked similar. So it was kind of like this clique. I became like, I don't even know how I ended up in that clique, to be quite honest. But I ended up in that clique, and because of it, I had a lot of friends. I had a lot of friends with a lot of people in different groups. I had friends who were jocks. I had friends who were cheerleaders. I had friends who were like the cholos and the cholas. I had friends that were the scene and the punks, and the skateboarders. I knew a lot of people growing up, And but it also had a lot to do with the fact that I didn't talk about my epilepsy. I didn't tell people that, in high school, I didn't tell people that I had epilepsy. You found out either because I had a seizure in front of you, my mom told you, or my brothers told you. Me saying I have epilepsy did not come from my mouth very often growing up. It was probably like twice that I can think of. But I don't think that you should be like that, though. I think that quality is better than quantity, and quality friends are worth so much more than how many friends. So if you are in middle school, high school, you're in school, college, whatever it is, and you want to have friends, the wonderful thing about social media is that you can connect with other people in the epilepsy community, and it doesn't necessarily have to be with kids in your own school. I didn't know anyone growing up who had epilepsy. I was the only one that I knew of. I didn't know anyone until I started this whole social media thing. I was, as an adult, I spoke more about my epilepsy, but I still didn't know anyone who had epilepsy. And I found the epilepsy community through social media. I know that Bree has a Discord, that Bree, aka SoCal Epilepsy, she has a Discord. There's support groups that you can join for teenagers, young adults, caregivers, parents. There's so many support groups out there that help you deal with epilepsy and gives you that social aspect. I do plan on opening or starting a support group. Mine is not really gonna, the way I picture it is not really gonna be a support group as far as like we'll talk about epilepsy or like facts and educate people. Nah, my support group is gonna be more like a hangout for people to go to. The way I picture my support group is just, it's just a hangout. So that there's other people out there in the world that also have epilepsy. So maybe you won't feel so alone. That's really my biggest thing when it comes to posting on social media and having a podcast, is just, showing people that they're not alone when it comes to their chronic illness. If you message me on Instagram, I'll respond to you. If you ever want to talk, I've talked to several people on my Instagram, and we'll just, kind of talk about each other's journeys, and you're more than welcome. But don't be afraid to reach out to people. Don't be afraid to talk to people about your epilepsy, especially in the epilepsy community. There are people that will understand what you're going through. I talk to SoCal Epilepsy, aka Bree, all the time, like at least a few times a week, and we'll talk about our epilepsy, but we'll also talk about other things. I think it's important to talk not just about epilepsy. That's a whole other thing. Maybe I'll talk about that in the support group. But yeah, that was an exclusive for you guys. If you listen to the podcast, that was an exclusive for everyone of me wanting to start a support group for everyone. So we'll see if I get it started this year. But I also, with that being said, of dealing with a chronic illness during school times, it's just be strong. Don't give up. If people don't like you or don't want to be friends with you because you have a chronic illness, that that tells you more about that person than it does about you, because that person can't get past your chronic illness. And if they can't get past something, especially something you can't control like epilepsy, those aren't people that you want in your life. Those aren't people who are going to be good for you in your life. The kind of people that you should want to have in your life are people who are going to accept your epilepsy, who are going to see you for the wonderful person that you are and not see that your chronic illness affects you. As far as like things you can and cannot do, they should be people who will be willing to help you no matter what, who would be setting a good example and, you know, encouraging you to live a healthy lifestyle and implementing a healthy lifestyle and not being ashamed of your epilepsy, who will take the time to get Seizure First Aid certified and to search and ask questions about epilepsy and become more knowledgeable about epilepsy and seizures. Those are the type of people that should be in your life. It shouldn't be people who are going to put you down. It shouldn't be people who are going to make you feel like you're less than or worthless and just make you feel like a burden. You know, I unfortunately have talked to quite a few people who their own family members had made them feel like that. And, you know, I haven't had that experience. I can't imagine going through that, especially with your family members, especially with parents. I think that as parents, we need to love our child and we need to see them for who they are and really encourage them to reach for the stars regardless of any sort of limitation or obstacle that is put in front of them, to always be the best version that they can be. So even if, you know, you have toxic family members, they don't have to be in your life. Sounds harsh, I know. Sounds harsh, and it's easier said than done, I know. But if they're toxic and they're putting you down and they're making you feel less than, why do you want to have them in your life? I would distance myself from people like that. I have been doing that a lot lately. I distance myself from certain people that I feel that is toxic and aren't doing good for me emotionally and mentally. I want nothing but positive people who will help me be the best version of myself. So I really think that I really encourage everyone to look at their community, look at their support system, and make sure it's the type of people that you want in your life. You know, and if it's your family members, you can distance yourself or limit contact. And your family doesn't have to be blood related. Your family is who you create. I have a lot of people that I've met throughout the years that I consider them family, and they are not related to me whatsoever. For example, Maribel from Embracing My Markings podcast. I just met her last year in May, and I go to her all the time. I ask her all kinds of advice and I tell her everything that's going on in my life, and she calls me her sister and I call her my sister, and I tell her I love her. And it's only been a few months. And she has easily become one of the members in my family. I absolutely adore that girl. So if your family is who your family is the people that that you choose. It doesn't necessarily have to be blood. We also talk about that on Cat's episode that I was on not Cat, but I was on oh my god, I'm so bad at this name. I'm trying to think and talk at the same time. It's not working. Their podcast, it's by the Sandwich Crew. Cat is one of the members of the Sandwich Crew, and their podcast is called I'm Not Think As You Drunk I Am, or something to that extent. I'll link down below. But Kat and I go into a discussion about family and who you should consider as family. So definitely check it out. You'll definitely see an interesting side to me, I think. But yeah, that's all I really wanted to talk about is just friendship. Unfortunately, epilepsy is a hard on everyone around you, and not everyone's going to accept it, and not everyone is going to be your friend, and that's okay. If they don't want to be in my life, then they're missing out. They're the ones missing out, because I am a blast, and that's how you should think of it too. If those people in your life, your peers, and coworkers, whoever, don't want to be in your life, they're the ones missing out, not you. So, to conclude, I just want to thank everyone for listening, supporting. I truly appreciate everyone, and everyone who leave comments on my social media and my podcast. I absolutely adore you guys interacting with me so much. I truly, truly appreciate it. I never thought that I would be talking about epilepsy like I do, but it has definitely been rewarding and a very freeing experience. So stay tuned for the support group info if you guys want to join. Hopefully I can get it up by this year. That would be wonderful. We'll see. Make sure you guys like, share, give it a thumbs up, 5-star, all that. It helps. It really, really, really helps. So thank you guys, and I'll see you on the next episode of Figuring Out Epilepsy. Bye.